Since humans first appeared on the planet, their survival has always been linked to the need to live in groups. After all, in a world full of dangers and challenges, being alone meant vulnerability. But this group coexistence did not start out organised. It was a long and complex process that evolved from small families to increasingly larger communities, eventually forming what we now call the state. Let's explore this fascinating story of how the first forms of government, the first laws, and how the family played a fundamental role in shaping human societies. In the early stages of humanity, groups did not have permanent leadership. Small groups of hunter-gatherers lived scattered and only organised temporarily for activities such as hunting or defence. When the danger passed, everyone returned to their individual or family routines. But gradually, this began to change. Clans, which were groups formed by families with kinship ties, were the first to establish clearer rules of coexistence. These clans occupied common territories and followed customs that dictated what was allowed or prohibited within the group. When several clans united, they formed tribes. In these tribes, temporary leadership often emerged, usually in times of war. The leader, or chief, was chosen for his bravery or combat skills. But when peace returned, he became just another member of the community. This model of temporary leadership can still be seen in various traditional cultures. For example, the Iroquois, a Native American nation, had a council of elders that made all important decisions. This consensus system is one of the earliest examples of democracy. However, war was what truly drove the creation of permanent governments. In times of conflict, the need for protection led communities to trust leaders who could ensure their safety. These military leaders began to concentrate power, and even after the war ended, they maintained their positions. The state, as we know it today, is the result of this centralization of power. Over time, these leaders ceased to be just military figures and began to manage the daily lives of communities. This included the distribution of food, resolving internal conflicts, and even organising large projects like irrigation systems and wall construction. But don't think this process was peaceful. The state did not emerge solely as a solution for the common good. Often it was imposed by force. In many parts of the world, stronger tribes invaded and subdued smaller communities, creating a ruling elite that exploited the conquered. On the other hand, the state brought important benefits. The centralisation of power allowed communities to grow and become more organised. As a result, the first cities emerged, becoming centres of culture, commerce and innovation. For a state to function, it was essential to have clear rules. In the early days, these rules were based on customs orally passed down from generation to generation. But as societies grew, it became necessary to create legal codes. One of the oldest examples of a legal code is the Code of Hammurabi, created in Mesopotamia. This code established specific penalties for different crimes and regulated issues such as commerce, marriage, and inheritance. Law brought stability to societies by ensuring that everyone knew what was allowed and what was not. At the same time, it helped legitimize the power of rulers, who presented themselves as defenders of order and justice. Before the emergence of the state, the family was the primary social unit. Kinship relations determined who cared for whom, who inherited property, and who made important decisions within the community. Over time, the family structure changed. In many societies, patriarchal power was consolidated, and inheritance began to be passed down through the male line. This strengthened the role of men in society, but also limited women's influence in economic and political matters. However, in some cultures, women continued to play important roles. In matrilineal societies, for example, power and inheritance were passed down through the maternal line, highlighting the diversity of family organisations throughout history. The history of human civilization is marked by a constant process of social organisation and evolution. From the earliest hunter-gatherer communities to the emergence of modern states, humans have sought ways to ensure their survival and prosperity. Government, law, and family were fundamental elements in this process. They brought order, stability, and progress, but also created challenges such as inequalities and conflicts. Understanding this trajectory helps us better comprehend the world we live in and the social structures that still influence our lives today.